Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer based in Charleston, South Carolina, who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is presented this year by Townsend Automotive in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The Honda CR-V has been my favorite vehicle in Honda's lineup for years because it has great gas mileage and can haul a vintage furniture find with ease. In fact, it's so easy for getting out there in general, from the beach to the mountains to even the next photo shoot for a Southern travel article. Purchasing a CR-V from Townsend Honda means purchasing from a family-owned company built on service and connection with its customers, and they want to remind you of the joys of a jaunt down the road. Visit townsendhonda.com for current inventory, or if you're in West Alabama, stop in. Townsend Honda salutes local entrepreneurs, from restaurateurs to podcasters, and they welcome you to be part of a community that does the same. Transcending generations and geography, Lilies of Charleston is much more than sauces and spices. It's the story of a Charleston family united by love of cooking and gathering around the table. Celebrating 20 years in business, its recipes actually have a much longer legacy than that. Hank Tisdale first introduced the mustard sauce to the public in 1985 at the Rib Shack restaurant in Charleston, South Carolina, and the company honors those recipes as well as the memory of their great Aunt Lillie. CEO and co-partner Tracey Tisdale Richardson has creatively added to the line of sauces and steered the company into a national limelight that includes features in Forbes, New York Magazine, and Washington Post. And with Lilies, she shares Gullah Geechee culture in every bite. Welcome to the Southern Fork, you two.
Thank you. We're glad to have you here, Stephanie.
Yeah, well, I should say where here is. We're not going to give the address because we don't want people to know that this paradise exists for only you. But we are sitting in Hollywood, South Carolina, which is about 20 minutes south of Charleston. We are on a dock with birds and a pond and a light breeze under a shade umbrella. So y'all are going to have a really hard time to get me out of here today. But so how long have you lived in this location?
33 years.
And was that about the time that you had the Rib Shack?
No, this was the
mid-'80s.
Mid-'80s, yeah. The mid-'80s, because we moved here in 87, so I think the Rib Shack is just
a few years above that.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Dad grew up here in Charleston.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Tell him where you grew up, Dad.
Well, I grew up actually in North Charleston. I'm familiar with
Park Circle,
because first house we had was in Liberty Hill.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly where Liberty Hill is. Yeah, I got stuck by a train there on the way here.
I used to get stuck every Sunday coming back to the Liberty Hill Church.
You moved out here in the 80s. And just for a moment before we get into Lily's, because we're going to talk about Lily as the basis, and I want you to tell me about the Rib Shack, because that was an old school joint that you ran.
That was definitely old school. It was a small restaurant right there on King Street, across the street from County Hall. I don't know if you know where County Hall was.
I do.
In the old days. And we used to have, we'd open up and people just started coming. I mean, it's, we were talking about advertising, but we didn't get a chance to advertise because people came in so fast. We just started selling. And it just took off. And I know we stayed there for several years. And after that, because I had a lot of partners. And after that, we just broke up. Everybody went their own different ways.
Right. And we're going to talk a lot today about sauces. But I'm going to guess that you were making some sauces at the Rib Shack as well, right?
Right. Yeah, we used to make it on the stove in a really big, I don't know what it is, 50-gallon.
Like pots.
Pots, yeah, pots.
Those pots, I did an interview years ago with Bertha's Kitchen,
Bertha's
and
Kitchen,
they let me stir the pot behind the thing. You know, it's like a really big deal, but that was one of those 50 gallons,
Right.
you know, had the greens in it.
Yeah, that's it.
They're like, you get one stir.
Yeah,
So,
that's what we had.
Lily, your love of cooking really came from your family, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah, I started to cooking. I guess I would have been probably in my teenage days because my mother had 3 boys and I was the oldest. So obviously I was the one that had to cook because my father worked and she worked, and she would actually teach me how to cook things like rice, for instance.
Which is a lot more complicated than people give it credit for. You're acting like, is she rice? And I'm like, rice, Charleston rice is Charleston rice. It's got to be right.
Yeah, that's good. I used to measure by my finger how much water to put in it.
That's how my grandmother taught me too. Yeah. Up to this. Yeah, right. Up to this knuckle.
Exactly. Cooking. Those were good days. I went to Barnes Wilson High School. Graduated from Barnes Wilson in 56, actually. Yeah, 56. Went to college in Baltimore, rather, at Morgan State University. Went in the service as a second lieutenant for my 2 years. And I came out and went to Philadelphia. That's where my Aunt Lillie lived. And I used to cook with her, watch her cook. And so the whole family just kept cooking.
You just kept cooking.
No. I'm still cooking.
Exactly.
Well, good, because I'm staying for dinner. You're not going to be able to get me off the stock. Y'all, Charleston is having the most epic spring. There is like a fish jumping I can see in the distance. And epic spring means we don't have 110% humidity yet.
Exactly.
And so now, obviously, cooking runs in the family. So, Tracey, how did you get the cooking bug?
So, I think growing up in New Jersey, I was always like underfoot in the kitchen, setting the table, helping because my parents entertained a lot. Also the oldest of 3. It's my sister, and then my brother's the youngest. I was always like setting the table and, helping to, make small dishes. At the time, Dad was making, there was this great coconut rice that he used to make, that we were both kind of like, he was learning how to make it, and then I was learning how he was making it. It was almost like at his sort of like kneecaps, trying to learn the recipe. But just, I think that's, how I learned.
And when did it change from being, or was it always? Because some people would see what you had to do and what you had to do as a chore. Like, I can't wait to never do this again, right? When did it feel right to keep doing it?
I think it always felt right. I know that feeling, like you said, of when it was a chore. That was for me washing dishes. That's always a chore.
Yeah.
But like,
I think you have to be pretty enlightened to like washing dishes.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you might just need to head on down to the monastery because you're there.
Right.
You've met it.
Exactly. I think cooking was always just fun because you associate it, especially when you associate it with entertaining, and that meant people were coming over, and that would be, kids, families that had kids my age, that. So I think it always was associated with fun or with like family. So it's never really been a chore.
Which is great because your stuff is amazing. Now, I do get a lot of sauces, as you can imagine, and spice blends and samples from all over the country because I'm fortunate enough to work all over the country. And I also am already partial to Charleston because I live here and I love the food here. But I am fascinated by the mustard barbecue, and I want to talk a little bit about that, but also how flavorful, how consistent, and how delicious the products are. So let's start because I know that everybody has their favorites, and I know I've done a little bit of research, and a lot of people love the hot sauce, but that mustard sauce is what I'm going to use tonight, actually, on my shrimp. And so, will you tell us about it?
Sure. Okay. So, the base recipe, we have like mustard barbecue, of course, is iconic to South Carolina. And so we started off with our mild mustard barbecue, which is finger licking. And it's, I think it's unique in its own because one, it's low country version versus up in the upstate where it's closer to the North Carolina border and there's more vinegary based. Ours is more of a thick. It's got like a sweet and savory, more of a molassesy flavor. So it's got like a rich thickness that coats the meat, but also offers a lot of flavor.
And really coats seafood as well, which sometimes that's a little harder to stick, right? And I like it because I can substitute it for mustard in a recipe. And especially like a lot of recipes will call for mustard and then a sweetener. And I'm like, I don't need to. I can just use that, right? This is what everybody's going to be asking when they listen to this show. A lot of families who cook, they have like this one thing, right? How did you bring this to market? Because it's a risk. Right.
And it takes a lot of
And I know that's a
work.
big question, but just generally.
Yeah. And a lot of these, we've expanded too because like with the finger licking, we've got the Hab Mussy, which is a spicy version of it, which is really popular. That's the one that's won awards as well. But you start off really with perfecting the, fine-tuning your recipe first and then going to like a co-packer to scale up. Now, we're fortunate because my husband's a development and research chemist. So he knew how to...
You married well. Your dad was like, get him.
Yeah.
He can help us with this sauce.
Right. And so he was instrumental with us, being able to scale it and figuring out, what things that might have been hard to replicate from a, like a homegrown recipe to making it, something that would be shelf stable. And at the time when we started doing this, we didn't know that we were, setting trends because it's all natural. It's low in sodium. It's, non-GMO. So, there's a lot of those better for you attributes that are part of our product that we kind of set the trend back in 2001 before it was even a trend.
So, that's 20 years, Tracey.
Yeah.
I guess you're sticking with this. One thing that has started to be more of a part of your work is this idea of explaining the culture.
So it actually wasn't a shift so much for us because we started off that way. We were doing, all of our products had Gullah Geechee names and associations. For me, history is like a really important component of just my overall life. And, as you know, Charleston is rich. That's what people come here for, rich in history.
But the names, we would have known. It would have been a lot more familiar to a lot more people, I think, a few years ago before I saw like 20 Pennsylvania license plates on the way here, right?
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it was always important to let people know that these products and that the names are associated with the Gullah culture.
Yes.
I think the shift happened for others really probably over the last maybe 5-7 years when, more attention in terms of TV, in terms of, the Food Network or, places like that talked about the culture here. So I think that's more of like when the shift became, more mainstream, I guess you
Right,
could
or
say.
culturally conscious.
Right.
Right. Well, let's talk about some of the names. So beyond my mustard sauce, we have some spice rubs. So we've got Hissy Fit, all-purpose hot spice. Right. And then
I think
beef and burger seasoning mix, which honestly, you can't have a burger without beef and burger. Okay, so this all-purpose spice. Tell me about this.
Yeah, a whole lot of. So again, Gullah name, it's like a whole lot of spice and seasoning. It's funny because we came up with that name when we were developing the recipe. There's something like 12 or 15 different spices in it. And, it's like when you're talking in the kitchen, you're like, oh, there's a whole lot of stuff in it and up in this recipe, making it up. So that's kind of like we stumbled upon that name, I think.
That's kind of what it was.
Yeah. So what have you learned about yourself and your family working and building this business to share your family? Because you say on the front of every label, may you never feel unwanted, unloved, or hungry. Is that something that comes from your table?
That actually came from Aunt Lillie, right, Dan? The sad thing is it was part of her funeral program. And growing up, when we would, like Dad mentioned, living in New Jersey and going to Philadelphia while he was in the service, we always spent Sunday dinners with her. And her dining room was like a revolving door. After church on Sundays, it would be the family up to dinner first. It was almost like a baseball game. Then up to the plate, you switch places. There'd be some other families that would come through and we'd be in the living room talking with other people. So it was like that was kind of her operation standard for Sundays, that people after church are coming through, and when you're done, you move over and somebody else takes the place. And so that, I think that was something she said, and it was in the funeral program, and we remembered it years later. And that's where we got our motto from, because we named it after Aunt Lillie. And when we found that, I was like, oh man, that is like the perfect statement and the perfect sort of summary of how we live.
Right.
And Tracey is kind of like our, Tracey is an art major. So she's kind of like our, what we call her the strange one. Because she likes, as a kid, we go to New York and we talk about going to the restaurant, number one. Then we talk about, well, what else are we going to do? Everybody wanted to go to the park. The other kids want to go to the park. Tracy wanted to go to a museum. She's 8, 9 years old. She wants to go to the museum. I say, what little 8-year-old kid want to go to the museum? Where there's parks around and hot dogs and all that kind of stuff like that. But she'd go and she'd look, and we're all trying to see what she's looking at and what she's seeing, but we couldn't see what she saw because she's just there staring. I mean, that's just that. And so she comes up with these recipes whenever we talk about a product. She's the one that says, okay, let's go ahead. Let me play with it for a little while. And she comes back with changing the names and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about it, but they can't put it into the words. Mm-hmm. And Tracey is the one that comes back with the words. And she's very creative. She's very creative.
The weird ones always get it done. Yeah. Right, Tracey?
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite?
Ooh.
I mean, or is there one perhaps that gave you a little trouble when you were playing with it? That you felt like you couldn't get it right. So it was very satisfying when it was right and your family tried it and it was delicious. And then when the co-packer worked with it, it was able to scale up. Is there one that comes to mind in that way?
Not really. Not right now. I can't think of anything. Maybe one of the new things maybe we're coming out with. I have to think about that. That's a good question. Well, I guess some of the spices, there are a couple spices like beef and burger, that there's no Gullah translation really for that. So, we struggle with do we give it a Southern name? Do we give it a Gullah name? So we were like, well, let's just be straightforward. It's beef and burger.
Right.
So
right.
I think that's probably the closest to what you're probably referring to,
When you're cooking, Are you always, now you're still cooking.
Yeah, I'm still cooking.
Is it still ribs? Did you retire the ribs? You're like, look, I've done these for a while.
Yeah, well, I do ribs occasionally, but we just, like right now, I'm in there making, for dinner, I'm making a salmon salad. And I don't know, I just think of things to put in it. But one of the first things I put in after I cook the salmon, put it in the little container. I was just getting ready to mix it when you knock on the door. I put some finger licking in it because that itself, I use it as a ingredient, or what do you call it? A flavor enhancer. Other than mayonnaise, I put.
And what is it that is your go-to?
Ooh,
or you need takeout after doing all this all day?
No, I still like to cook. Wow, that's a good question. I like so many different things. Like I like the hot sauce on, shrimp, or different kinds of seafood, especially on vegetables. The latest thing that I'm really been addicted to is popcorn. So like I mix the hissy fit and whole lotta, and then I put a little butter on cause I don't pop the popcorn. I'll buy like some plain, and then I'll use butter and hissy fit and whole lotta on popcorn. And oh my God, I'm addicted, and I don't even like popcorn.
You're like, this is a carrier for what I need right now. Yeah. I can definitely see that. I think we've had a year of everybody having to cook so much more than they were used to doing. When before, I grew up, we went out to eat, but it was definitely an anomaly comparatively to the day-to-day, right? And my mom still says to this day, we pretty much only go eat somewhere to eat something that she can't make. Right. Because that is not interesting to go have chicken and rice because she knows how to do that better than anybody else. Right. So I think a lot of people, they just get so weary of it. They see it as a chore. But now you have the opportunity to kind of explain to people and help them literally in the kitchen. What is it that keeps you coming back to that creatively? Because your dad says, hey, she was the artistic one. She thinks about this. You're saying, I'm not into takeout. I still want to do this. What is that satisfaction?
I think it's figuring out how to make the more exotic things from the traditional sauces. Like my dad, he's always like, well, I don't want to do that because it's too many steps, it's too much intricate cooking. So he likes to do the traditional dishes. And I like to do things that are more, as my brother says, so exotic. He calls me exotic because I like mushrooms, It's like, so.
Well, your brother and I probably need to have a chat too.
But I like to figure out ways in which you can use the sauces and, how you can expand your repertoire of making dishes. Because, of course, you use it on ribs, you use it on chicken, you can use it on fish. But when I read through some of my magazines or I look at some, the Food Network, I get inspired by something I see and I say, oh, the mustard barbecue sauce would be great on that. And I could expand it to do this or that. And I even have friends who call me and say, I use that as a salad dressing. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea.
The first time I did the mustard sauce and I did the finger licking, because I don't know how hot the hot is until I've cooked the whole thing. So I'm going to taste that. But I was like, I'm going to start with this because I want to try all the flavor. I did a New York Times recipe and I just substituted, it was an easy substitute. It wasn't a different, but it was, it wasn't a Southern dish. Right. And it was an amazing. Yeah. And gave me that version of that. You're going into people's homes. We're talking the 20-year mark. That's a congratulatory moment. Right. Y'all, 20 years. A lot of people don't have businesses for 20 years. So this is a huge thing. What's really making you hungry? What is next? Are you ready to roll bigger and better? What are you thinking about?
Definitely. We are expanding with, like you said, with COVID. It's really been an opportunity for us to expand because people are cooking at home. So we're getting more recognition because we sold through Amazon, and more stores are looking to expand because, the supply chain has so much trouble. And so people want something unique. They want something different. Some of their more traditional products that are used on the shelf weren't available. So it's just opened up a lot of doors for us. So we're definitely excited about the expansion. But then we're also looking at, expanding our product line too. We've got some new ideas, some exciting things in the works for end of the year. We've got some new spices like the sweet smoke and the beef and burger that are coming out this summer. So,
and I see them in front of me.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things new on the horizon that we're really still excited to be doing and expanding.
Every little thing you have to make decisions on, right? Like over the years, like your labels have changed and your packaging has changed and, shipping and then boxes for the shipping. I mean, all of those things seem like small choices, but they're really big when you add them all up, right?
Yeah.
What is one aspect of this job? And I'm going to ask Tracey this because this is her world.
That's her world. That's exactly right.
What is one aspect of this job that really meshes like a puzzle piece with an aspect of your personality?
It's probably the creative. Yeah, it's definitely the creative because for a long time, like you said, you noticed our label changed and our logo changed. And I was struggling with it for a while because I knew we had to change to these bottles because they're more ergonomic to hold rather than the old style mason jars. And it was time to really change the logo, but not go too far. And so I worked with a friend of ours who owns a company called Bold Strategies. And I said, this is the heritage behind the logo. I want it to stay the same, but I want to change it so that it's more modernized. I explained about the sweetgrass basket history, the flowers representing Aunt Lillie, and the fact that Charleston has to be on there. That's our name, Lilies of Charleston. And this designer came up with the most awesome
and it's got
redesign.
Flowers and then Lilies of Charleston and a sweetgrass basket in the background.
Yep. Yeah. And then even the basket weave on the edge, so
all those little details.
It really kind of fit. And then we came up with these boxes that were, more like what I call our sort of gift grill box. It's like you get one of these boxes. It's got everything you need to go to a picnic. It's got the barbecue.
I would say that's a really nice housewarming gift too.
Exactly.
Because we're going to be hanging out now. We got the vaccine. We're like, what are you doing?
Right.
So we need little gifts to take to the house too. And it's always nice. It's a very nice thing no matter where you live, but it's an especially Southern thing to take. Don't come empty handed.
Right. Everybody's mom has just told you that.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, what? Oh crap. I've got to bring something. So, what is keeping you up at night?
Oh gosh. I think this too, as a creative person, you can't shut it off. You're constantly I keep a little pad by my bedside.
I don't do that. I just try to repeat it enough so I'll remember it. Maybe I should do the pad.
Yeah, no, I tried that too. The repeating it enough, by the time you fall asleep and wake back up, you don't remember. So my phone, like a little pad, I kind of jot down ideas, and of course you can't get back to sleep, so you end up reading. But I just try to jot down ideas because there's all these ideas that, through the course of the day that inspire you to do something, sitting out here and just, listening to the water. You think of seafood and how it'd be nice to have a glass of wine, or, there's all these little things that happen throughout your day that kind of inspire you. And that's probably mostly what keeps me up at night. Other than okay, do we have enough distribution for this?
The nuts and bolts. Yes. I'm like, oh, did I email that person?
Right.
Let me email them in my head right now. No, not a good move.
Yeah.
Well, I do have something, and I'm hoping that you both are going to contribute to it. But it is only for Southern Fork guests, and it is really just a dream thing. It is a magic picnic basket. And since I don't believe in death row, I don't ask about the death row meal. This is the opposite of that. This is a meal that brings you life. So I can time travel. I can go back and ask anybody, maybe someone here on this label, to make anything that you would like. I can source all the ingredients that you want, and I can cook a little, but I doubt half as good as either one of you sitting across from me. So I'd love to bring you some of your favorite things in that basket, and they don't all have to go together. They don't have to make a composed meal. What may I bring you?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I would love to go back in time and have Aunt Lillie, obviously, at the picnic. And a couple things, Dad'll laugh when I tell him this, a couple of things that she really made well that neither one of us actually know how to make. She used to make these yeast rolls. And she would whip this up in like seconds, right? And she would put them in a muffin pan, but she'd make 3 little balls.
Like a clover leaf.
And put them in the muffin tin, and they would rise and they'd pull apart, and they were just so mouthwatering. And I kick myself every day because I never learned how to make that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, I'm not sure about Aunt Lillie's, but I've had versions that are delicious.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then one of the desserts, because we're both like sweet freaks. So she used to make this cake that was it a sheet cake, Dad, or no? It was like a round cake, right?
Yeah, well, the one I used to like with the jelly cake.
That's what I was talking about.
Okay,
Yeah,
jelly cakes. Yeah. It was about 3 or 4 layers of like a round sheet cake. And then she put
different jellies or preserves between the layers. Yeah.
And I don't know, I just love it. It was really great.
It was simple, but it was so flavorful.
So it was like a yellow cake with jam and jellies between the layers. Did it have a frosting?
No, it didn't have frosting. It just had the jellies. Yeah. And it would normally be something like grape jelly, not grape jelly, but it was
like grape preserve or some kind of grape.
Yeah, well, some kind of grape jelly, I guess it is. And she had 3 or 4 layers of it, and it was just great.
Yeah, it was really good.
All right, so far we have bread and cake. we might need something else. I mean, but it can be all desserts. It's fine.
I think some of my other favorite
chicken wings.
Yeah, chicken wings. Oh, he loves chicken wings.
Do you like dry or wet chicken wings?
Wet.
Okay, I'm a dry rub woman.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I really like are seafood purloo. Rice with like a shrimp, or I love mussels too. Something like some kind of seafood purloo or bog or something like that.
Well, that sounds pretty good to me. I'm definitely gonna be eating and enjoying your food for a long time. So I'm happy to bring you those treats for you to enjoy.
Thank you.
Yes. So if people want to learn more about Lilies of Charleston, you can go to thesouthernfork.com. You know that I'm going to have a link there to send you to their link. I'm also going to have some images of the faces behind these voices. If you like what you hear, I'm glad, because this is really fun. I mean, some days, not so fun. This right here, where I'm sitting across from 2 people who are making me hungry with every sentence that they say, and I am looking out across brackish water and on a beautiful low country day, it is really, really nice. So there are more than 200 episodes. I have known Tracey for years. I got this sauce years ago. I have gotten to know her, tried the sauces for a while, and I am excited to share their story with you. So please rate and subscribe, and more importantly, try one of these sauces from Charleston. But maybe not move here. We're really busy right now. Thank you so much for having me out here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Pleasure
coming.
having you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouth Full. Hank Tisdale's mustard sauce is one of the best examples, according to Robert Moss, of the mustard barbecue sauce style that is very iconic here in South Carolina. Now, Robert Moss was my guest for episode 158, and he is the contributing barbecue editor of Southern Living. I would say he is also a barbecue scholar, and last year he came out with a revised and expanded second edition of his book, Barbecue, The History of an American Institution. And in it, I'm going to turn to page 138. He talks about the origins of this South Carolina mustard-based sauce. And I'm going to tread carefully here because barbecue is very serious business here in South Carolina. But Mr. Moss, he says that many writers have attributed the use of mustard and barbecue sauce to the many Germans who migrated to this part of South Carolina. But that is pretty dubious to connect the two. And although some of the barbecue restaurants and families that really made their names through using this particular style of barbecue sauce claim differently, I'm going to go with Robert Moss when he says that for the most part, it seems like it was around, but probably not very widely cooked or used until the 20th century. He has a hard time finding examples of it before then, either in a recipe or in a mention. And he thinks it probably has something to do with the rise of commercially available prepared mustard products. But he says that we do know that by the 1970s, the bright yellow sauce was being used across a wide swath of territory, ranging from Newberry County, which is west of Columbia, the state capital in the center of the state, all the way down to Charleston on the coast. It even made its way into Georgia and down the coast as far as Jacksonville. Now, I hope you realize by now that this Talking with Your Mouth Full segment is for all you barbecue nerds out there, and I am definitely among your ranks. Now, I did not grow up with the mustard barbecue sauce, but I love it just the same, and as you can hear, I love to use this tangy, sweet, a little bit spicy sauce as a substitute for mustard or grainy mustard in some of the recipes that I make here at home in my home kitchen. But my barbecue sauce of family origin was in North Carolina, and that was Lexington style. So the regional barbecue differences are so fascinating. Robert Moss's book is a great deep dive into something that is so popular today, but has been so popular for so long as far as great gathering and party food. You can check out that book at Books from the Show on thesouthernfork.com. And more importantly, get yourself a bite or two of some mustard-based barbecue sauce. You know, I've heard that Hank Tisdale has a really good version of it. So anyway, thanks for listening today, and I'll be right here next time you listen. You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you going to eat all that?